going on in the United States of America. Two cases in the past few months. The one happened in November. The outcome came out quite recently when the FAA decided to revoke the license of Trevor Jacob of the US, who faked a plane crash in order to gain YouTube views. Are these two cases similar? Well, the one that happened 2 days ago on Sunday, the 24th of April 2022, involved two commercial pilots who decided to violate regulations. Well, the difference between the two is that Trevor Jacob did not even have any regard for the law. He went up and he did what he wanted to do, despite what the law provides for. The two gentlemen who decided to pull that stunt, sponsored by Red Bull, the other day on Sunday, 24th April 2022, those two gentlemen, they did consider the law. They did make applications to the regulator for an exemption. When the regulator said no, they said, well, we're gonna go ahead anyway. Come with me, let me tell you what happened in that particular case. You see, Red Bull is known for sponsoring extreme things, extreme activities, extreme events, such as the one you see over here, of a small aircraft flying through a tunnel. Red Bull is always behind those types of events, those types of daredevil stunts. I guess it gains notoriety for them. It gains publicity for them. So they were behind the event that happened on Sunday, the 24th of April 2022. So the plan was they take off in two Cessna 182 aircrafts and fly to 14,000 feet. Once established, they would push the aircraft nose down, let it descend, then kill the engine. After killing the engine, they would have, in that particular process, they would have deployed a specialized air brake they had made and fitted to the belly of the aircraft to assist with controlling the descent and to assist the autopilot in slowing down the aircraft. So once that was in play, they would then each one would jump out from their own aircraft. So the aim was for pilot A to leave aircraft A and float through the air into aircraft B, and for pilot B to actually jump out of the flight deck of aircraft B and float through the air, free fall into the aircraft A. So the whole aim was to actually become the first people to swap aircrafts mid-air. In other words, they wanted to make the claim that I took off in one aircraft and I landed in another, and this was done, the swap was done in mid-air without any assistance given. So that was the whole point, basically, to just get in that cloud that we were the first people to do this. We took off in a different aircraft and landed in a completely different aircraft, and we swapped our aircraft in the air without any assistance, but only by simply slowing down the aircraft, killing the engine, and then putting it at a 90-degree nosedive towards the earth. How did it go? Of course, theoretically, this makes perfect sense. But we know from reports now that it did not go so well for one of the aircrafts. While the one pilot managed to re-enter the next aircraft and gain control of it and bring it under control and commandeer it to the ground, the second aircraft could not necessarily be re-entered or be controlled. It soon went into a spiral dive, and that spiral dive led it to crashing on the ground over the Arizona desert. So there was partial success in that regard. And of course, Red Bull and those two cousins who were flying those aircraft got the publicity they wanted. They got the hype that they wanted to generate with this. But if then these two were able to do it, what is so wrong with what happened on Sunday? If indeed they managed to partially succeed in swapping at least one of those aircraft, what could we say is of concern with the happenings of the past Sunday? While the first pilot managed to re-enter the other aircraft and commandeer it and take it down to the ground safely, the second one could not and landed with the help of his parachute. He landed safely as well with the help of his parachute. What is concerning is that the Charlie 182 is classified as an aircraft, as a manned aircraft. In other words, it requires someone to be at the controls. It requires someone to be in the cockpit, to be at the flight deck at all phases of flight. It was never meant to be a drone. It was never meant to be an unmanned aerial vehicle. It was meant to be manned at all times. That's how it's classified. That's how that's what it is certificated for. What those cousins did basically meant that for a brief moment, the two aircrafts were behaving as if they were just the object falling from the sky. I wouldn't want to say they were behaving like drones, because drones are operated from a remote location somewhere. There is an operator behind the drone. But these ones, for a moment, were not even operated by anyone. They were simply free falling from the sky and could be said to be posing a danger to aviation. So, but the gist of the matter is that on 28 February 2022, one of the cousins wrote to the FAA requesting an exemption from section 91.105 paragraph A of the FAA regulations. Now, these are regulations that provide that at any phase of flight, an aircraft in the category of the 182 that those guys were flying must have someone manning the flight deck, someone manning the flight station. There are only two exceptions in that rule on when there can be absence from the flight deck. This is if the pilot has to leave the flight station for physiological needs, or the pilot has to leave the flight station as part of the operations of the aircraft. So if the operations of the aircraft require the pilot to actually leave the seat, then they are permitted to do so, or if they're leaving the seat for physiological reasons. The second sub-component of that rule is that hatches, not necessarily hatches, the harnesses, seat belts must always be fastened when you are in that particular flight deck and when you're operating that aircraft. That is why when we train pilots, we train them, the last check they make is hatches and harnesses secure. In other words, we try to instill in them that always have your harness around you. It's not because your instructors want you to do that. It's because the law is specific that as long as you are sitting there in that flight deck, you must have your harness on. So the two cousins wanted to be exempted from that rule. In other words, they wanted to be exempted from having to fasten their seatbelts all the time while that aircraft was in operation, and they wanted to be exempted from the requirement that they must be at the controls throughout the operation of that particular aircraft. So the CAA looked at their application, and the reasons that these brothers advanced for requiring that exemption was that, number one, be in the public interest because it would excite young children to actually start loving or having an interest in aviation, in science, in technology, engineering, mathematics, that it would help science. If the FAA grants them this, science will be the winner at the end of the day. So the FAA looked at their exemption, and the FAA thought that it could not necessarily understand what was the public interest. The applicant, which was one of the brothers, did not fully ventilate the reasons why this would be in the public interest for the FAA to grant them the exemption. And then on the second point, the FAA was of the view that actually granting such an exemption might endanger public safety. So then on Friday, the 23rd of February 2022, the FAA wrote a letter responding to the application for exemption to one of the brothers who was flying the other aircraft, informing him that your exemption has been declined for the reasons I've just articulated just now. Now you'd expect that both Red Bull and these brothers, having been informed now by the FAA that the exemption was not granted, they would cease any plans to actually carry out the stunt they wanted to carry out. But no, the brothers didn't do that. They actually took off. They did exactly what they had outlined in their application to the FAA. One of the aircrafts spun out of control and crashed to the ground. The second one, he was able to re-enter it and bring it under control and take it down to the ground. So what now? What next? We see a brazen violation of rules. We see a brazen disregard for regulations, just like in the Trevor Jacob case. And it's very concerning. It's very concerning when you have sponsors such as Red Bull throwing their weight behind something that is patently illegal. Because if an exemption is not authorized, it means it has not been done in terms of the law. The regulator has not allowed you to perform what you've applied to actually perform. So it's concerning that sponsors like Red Bull will throw their weight behind such. What are the likely consequences in this particular case? Number one, the FAA is still going to investigate. They're going to investigate if indeed there was a violation of their express denial of the exemption, if there was a violation of any other regulations, because for now the exemption was an exemption on just one regulation, the regulation requiring harnessing and presence at the flight deck. But the the FAA investigation will go broader than that. They will look into what other violations, what other regulations are likely violated in this instance. And then, having made those investigations, the FAA will come to a conclusion, and that conclusion might involve the loss of licenses. You know, the licenses for the two cousins might be revoked. Might be some punitive orders issued against the brothers, number one, and also against the organization itself that was behind this. So any other, licenses or permissions that Red Bull itself has in the aviation sector might also be revoked. But we are watching this and watching with a keen interest, because it matters in the aviation sector, given the recent developments in the Trevor Jacob case, and now with these two cousins the other day. All right, yeah, so that's how it went down. That's how the case involving the two cousins who decided to go rogue, that's how it went down. We await the investigation of the American regulator, and we are watching keenly from the continent here in the global south. We are watching keenly how the Americans will handle this issue, because it interests all of us in the aviation sector, and how we can develop and push forward and improve in our own aviation sectors down here. Alright, I hope that was an enjoyable video, and if it was, please do click the like button, and do not forget to subscribe and to share this amongst your aviation circles, wherever you operate in your community of aviators. Copy this link and paste it in your Facebook, in your Instagram, in your Twitter, wherever it is. Just share it, just spread the love. It's the only way we can grow this channel. It's the only way we can make Africa great again. It's the only way we can bring this beautiful content to the African child and make the African child aware of aviation. Thank you so much, and until next time, Angelo GB signing out and saying cheers.